Welcome to the Dirty Verdict Podcast, where your hosts, trial lawyers Kyle Herbert and Bill Ogden, and mediator Peter Taff, talk with interesting lawyers and break down recent legal news in detail. Here's Kyle, Bill, and Peter.
All right, welcome back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast. I am full-time mediator Peter Taff.
I am full-time litigator Kyle Herbert.
And I'm full-time litigator Bill Ogden. Today with us, we have Caitlin Thorpe, or as I know her, Barbee. Caitlin, nice for you to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm a full-time litigator too. I practice family law in Harris and surrounding counties, and I'm board certified and crazy. That's what I do every day, is I deal with people and their crisis in their life, and custody, divorce, child support, all of the fun things that probably most everybody has gone through at some point.
I would not Peter. Although, are you trying to emancipate several of your children so they're not technically yours anymore?
No, not. I mean, I think they're under the law. All of them are, all of them 25 through 20, so they're on their own.
Okay.
No, not anymore. I thought they could stay on your health insurance till 26.
That and car insurance, apparently.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Obama.
So you are, I believe, after 36 or so episodes, you're our first family lawyer.
Okay.
And so three of us don't practice on that, and probably, to me, I don't really understand it beyond just the bare minimum. I did a pro bono divorce when I was like a first-year lawyer, but that was the extent of my family law. So we're going to ask you a lot of questions. You may be surprised that like lawyers with some civil experience really are kind of clueless about that. So I hope you'll tolerate some of our stupid questions.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I think I would probably rather not practice law than be a family lawyer. Like, it just sounds like the worst possible thing. Why did you decide to get into family law?
So I wanted to help people. I mean, that's the honest answer. And thinking that there is a way that you can use mediation, you can use litigation, you can help these people that are in a really, really bad situation when they walk into your office, hopefully end up in a better situation at the end of the day. Most of the time you're able to do that, but sometimes you can't. But that was the reason. I mean,
And how's that worked out?
I think that 9 times out of 10, I'm able to leave people in a better place than they started. And so
God bless you.
That's way better than our percentages.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
So do you do mostly custody battles or mostly divorce asset splits? What's the majority of your work, or both?
I think I do both. Then, so every divorce suit includes what's called a SAPS, or a suit affecting parent-child relationship. And so I have to handle the kids' issues within the divorce if it comes up. I do have the cases where people aren't married and we deal with, adjudication of parentage and making sure the dad is the dad.
Is that still called a bastardy proceeding?
Jesus.
It is not. It is not.
Because we used to use that word in law school, these old cases. And I got to say, if it was still a bastardy proceeding, I might do family law.
I mean, it is it's a fun way to say it. It's just kind of like, I think it's outdated. Before we get into like what you do on a day-to-day or some of the cool stuff that you've done, where are you from?
I'm from Sugar Land originally. I grew up in Sugar Land, and my family is now in Pearland. So I've been local to this area for my whole life.
Sugars and pears.
Yeah.
All the produce.
And then college?
I went to LSU undergrad on a scholarship. So I went over there for 4 years.
Are you okay?
Ooh, tough day to be a Tiger.
It is a tough day. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to address that, but yeah.
No, if you want, so quick disclaimer, your boss that I went to law school with, he's a huge Baylor fan.
Ooh.
I know.
And was he like a walk-on at Baylor? I think he might have played football at Baylor.
He played at Tyler at junior college, and then he transferred to Baylor, but I don't think he ever played.
All right, well.
We talk about that all the time, and I wish he was not.
If you want to deflect some LSU pain, we can do nothing but talk about everybody in this room's favorite team, the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, I don't know how it started, but now I have like a huge resentment for Baylor. So at any given moment during any of these podcasts, we find time to just shit on Baylor. So It's quite fun. Or the city of Waco. We don't discriminate.
Which of course, you buried the lead. Baylor lost to Texas State.
Oh, Texas State.
Yes.
Worse.
I was going to say is formerly Southwest Texas for us older folks, but Texas State University, which I believe is like one of their first win against a Power 5 conference
ever
team.
I think they might have beaten Baylor once before or got really close. But yeah, I mean, for a team like Baylor, that stings. I mean, LSU, right, didn't meet expectations, but you lost to a really good team that everybody thinks is going to be really good.
An 8th-ranked team on the road at their house at night.
Yeah. Nope. There is no shame in that.
No.
That said, how was your time at LSU?
It was great. I wanted to stay every day and, go to law school over there. They offered me a full ride, but I came back because this is where my family's at, so, but it was fun. A lot of,
So full scholarship to LSU undergrad and then offer for full ride law. So I assume your grades were a little bit better than our collective 3 grades.
they were pretty good. Try to figure out how to pay for it.
And not good just by the average, probably better in the aggregate. Like if you added them together, still probably.
Yeah, you probably have more.
Close. So South Texas? All right. And what year did you get out of there?
I graduated in 2014.
And so we've interviewed lots of people and kind of asked them how they got around to their practice area. I think it was Judge Kelly Johnson who recommended to young law students, do everything, do every kind of practice, and then figure out what kind of lights your fire. Is that how you came to family law?
So I did some process of elimination. Family law was really where my heart was at. But my dad had always said, he's a lawyer on the consumer side, and said, you're not going to like it. It's too messy. It's too dirty. And so I listened to him. I worked for a disability group. I went to the public defender's office. And ultimately, when Matt found me, he was still doing some criminal work at that point. So I thought this is a good mix. And I had one more summer left, so I went. But I really thought that my heart was with family law from the beginning.
So you started at Skillern Law Firm? Skillern Firm. When you were in law school.
Yep.
While you were also in law school, did you meet anybody that would you consider like a really great mentor who's like 6'4" and like kind of tan?
Like a shining star, like for you to guide.
Yeah, a Hollywood type.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
Hollywood. This man right here.
Yeah, so when I was a third year going into the national championships for advocacy, there was 3 of us on our team, and we needed a 4th to be a witness. And so that's where Kaylin came in and crushed it for us. We lost in the final. No thanks to me. I did my job. It was my partner. Chris Rothfelder, if you're out there, that one's on you still. But yeah, that's where we became friends, and then we've kind of kept in touch since.
All right. So Bill steered you away from civil law towards some other area?
I don't know if we were really talking so much about what we wanted to do with our lives at that point.
Now we were just talking.
Living in the moment, trying to win that championship.
Yeah.
But I've never really had a huge interest in the civil side, to be honest. Y'all's civil side.
But you've been with the Skillern firm since 14 through now?
From 13 till now.
Wow. So that's
coming up on
these days, that's a pretty long tenure firm.
Knowing Matt as well as I know him, that says a lot about you.
And he's definitely going to buy you some sort of expensive watch next year for your 10th, because he has to.
Hey, Matt, you hear that?
Yep.
Rolex, Matt.
Yep.
Like a nice purple, gold.
Yeah, some diamonds with stones.
No, good idea.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, well, turning to substance.
Okay.
All right, family law. Here's first question. Because we all probably get calls from our friends who want advice, and of course I tell them, all I know is this. There's not a lot of fault stuff. The judge, unless there's some egregious facts, it's typically a 50-50 split of assets. Is that right?
I think in most cases, yes. What I'm looking for is the duration of the marriage. If we have a really long marriage and somebody was a stay-at-home spouse, we're probably looking at shifting that needle. If there was some extreme abuse, probably looking at shifting that needle. But the idea that somebody's going to get a 70-30 split because of fault, that just doesn't happen. 60-40 is really, really hard too these days. I think the courts are kind of immune to some of the fault-based stuff that happens, the adultery, cheating. They're really looking at trying to keep it close to 50-50 unless we have those extreme situations. And even then, 55-45.
And is that tried to a jury if you want it?
No, not in Texas. So the only things that we can try to a jury are conservatorship issues. So who's going to be that primary parent, or we're going to have a sole managing conservator, where the parties are going to live. So your geographic restriction, and then what is that geographic restriction actually look like? So those are the main things we try to the jury. There's some other smaller aspects, but the property division itself, that's generally to the bench.
Which the average jury trial that's deciding those issues? Is it like weeks, or is it usually a day or two?
Probably at least 5 days generally. Most of the time, if we're trying a custody case, we've got some compelling facts. We've got DFPS involved, possibly forensic expert, psychologist.
What's DFPS? Yeah.
The Department of Family Protective Services. So some type of CPS involvement at that point. So it's now trial. Some of the family courts down there, they'll hear a jury for 3 weeks, which kind of stinks for everybody else trying to practice in front of them.
So you said that fault doesn't really move the needle much in what you do, but I imagine it's the most fun stuff to do in depositions. So is that, I mean, I assume you still spend your time on it to see what it is?
Yeah, we want to explore it, and it's really a question of how much does the client want to know? I mean, of course, when we have cheating, when we have lots of money moving to, say you buy a house for your paramour.
Let's go for Kyle.
Kyle, you buy a house for your girlfriend, then
Settle down.
we're going to be exploring that. We're going to see where's that money moved, and that stuff comes up. But I have the ability to see all the messages, all the posts, everything, and that's the stuff we dive into when it comes up. Yeah.
Cell phone records.
Cell phone records. We're going in and we're subpoenaing, Twitter. We're looking at the Snapchat, figuring out what was out there.
Caitlin, let me ask a question. If I'm gonna, if you hypothetically were gonna buy a burner phone for yourself, where would you go about doing that?
Just go to the Walmart.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're making me nervous.
And which app would you use to communicate with someone that you didn't want to be found?
Probably Snapchat, honestly.
Yeah, well, I guess
That's what you see from your
from
your work.
Messages are getting deleted automatically, and it's really, really difficult to get them from.
Hard to crack.
Let me say something for the record. I do not have Snapchat on my phone.
But
I don't know.
Diane, if you're listening.
I don't know if you need to make that record.
I just did. I wanted to make that clear.
just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
So
For the benefit.
something that's interesting that comes up in our practice as well is when you're looking for stuff on cell phones, do you have a forensic guy image it, the whole thing, or are you specifically looking for certain apps? How do you go about it?
So first we're doing just a traditional discovery, and then generally following with the deposition, trying to figure out what do you have or what do you say you have. I do have experts that will image the phone, but we do have some issues with trying to get the entire phone turned over to us. So normally it's after we've had somebody produce something that we know is altered, then we can motion the court to make them turn over the phone, give us the archive or a mirror image of the phone and what was deleted on it.
So do you have somebody that you use that you like?
Not particularly.
Okay. We always, if you did, we'd give you a chance to shout them out.
Yeah.
So if you get limited information off of a cell phone from, an opposing party,
Mm-hmm.
can you then take that and subpoena the full stuff from whoever they're speaking with?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have like a little bit of a tidbit of we know where we're headed. Generally, you have to have something to go off of initially, but our clients are pretty good at having looked in the other person's phone at a point and figured out where our starting point is.
You got to be careful with that. That is definitely a crime
Yes.
in the state of Texas now, and it's very easy to violate.
So I know as a civil litigator, a lot of times my job comes down to talking a client down out of a really bad decision. And so you were talking about doing these trials that are basically over custody. So if you're going to have I'm assuming people don't go into this lightly, right? Like if you're calling CPS and alleging abuse and all this stuff, like do those custody fights happen in only like the most egregious situation? Because I would assume otherwise you got to be like, hey, this is going to be really bad.
And expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. Most of the time, yes. Like we have some kind of facts that are warranting us going all the way, or somebody's in denial about abuse, or when we have those abuse allegations that are made, can we substantiate it? And does one parent really believe it happened and the other doesn't? So then we try that issue to the court because we are just so polar opposite.
Or do you see a lot of that?
I do. I do. I feel like we litigate a lot, but I think probably 95% of cases settle. Like we're forced to mediate before a temporary orders hearing. We're forced to mediate before final. We have this temporary hearing 4 to 6 weeks after you sign a case normally, and it's trial by ambush. So a lot of times a client gets the taste of what the court proceeding is like at that point and then is like, wait, we're not going to go forward anymore. Like, that was uncomfortable.
For something like contested involving children, like what's a kind of a going price for something like that?
How much money do you have, Bill?
I'm not
That's
married.
the way it
I'm not
starts.
married.
How much do you have?
This is all for Pete. This is all,
It's for the listeners. It's for the listeners.
yeah, there's a reason he's like, I don't have Snapchat.
Yeah.
I have Snapchat.
I hope you got Pete's face.
Yeah.
This is really for
Yeah, I'm just curiosity on a contested side of it. I know that I have some friends, and I've heard stories of how much it can cost. So I was just wondering, do you have like a kind of an average ballpark?
So if you're going to go to final trial on a custody case, you're probably paying $50,000 at minimum. Like, that is the bare minimum. I know that.
And that people spend that because they want their kids to live with them?
Yeah, and I always have that conversation with them. I'm like, you know what we're fighting for.
So I went to pick up my 10-year-old from elementary school last week. And it's like the second week of school. And I didn't have the right hanger tag. So I'm going through the line. I have that tag from last year. And the sweet young teacher says, Mr. Herbert, next time, if you don't have the right tag, you can't pick your kids up. And I said, so what happens? You guys she goes, well, we're going to keep them. And I said, deal. Fine. I mean, right?
Yeah, burn that tag.
For how long?
He tried to take them.
Yeah.
I did my part.
You just left some like Outback Steakhouse gift certificates, and I'll see you.
They'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's somebody else's jam. Wow.
Kids are tough, though. Neanderthals had kids, and it worked out for us. So, again, they'll be fine.
I always perceived, though, that there was also kind of a corollary fight in that the parent that gets the custody, that it also affects some child support obligations going either way.
Yeah. So the party that is primary conservator, so we don't use the word custody in Texas, but I'm going to say it because that helps. If you're that primary custodian, you get to designate where the child lives. The other party is going to pay support. Even if that other party has possession of the kids 47% of the time, you're still paying support. And so a lot of our fights do hinge on somebody not wanting to pay support or not wanting to recognize that this is a 50-50 parenting situation. And so somebody then has to take the stand and say, I want primary at that point.
Caitlin, we told you beforehand, if there are questions that make you uncomfortable, you can just tell us to stop and we will edit it out.
Which means Kyle's about to ask you an uncomfortable question.
That's the wind-up. Are you married?
Hey.
Were you a family lawyer when you got married? I was. How did that pitch go? Is he an attorney?
No, he's not. He's a chef. So
Nice.
yeah, and right now he's a stay-at-home dad. So
I'm in the wrong business.
yeah, no, it went well. I just went into it knowing like I'm somewhat jaded. I work a lot, and you're going to hear me probably have a conception of marriage that is different than what you want. But as long as we're able to work through that and you recognize I'm just a little jaded, it'll be good.
I got a question, and I've never really thought about it until now, but do you have any idea what the statistics are for family law lawyers and success of their marriages? Because I know that the divorce rate is going more and more. I would think it's better because they know what they're fully aware of all the things that could go wrong and can communicate about it, I think.
I don't know the statistics. I do know one family lawyer couple that have been married for a long time, have a very successful relationship. My boss's wife is doing some family law. She's worked for, she was PI. Amber, yeah. And so she and Matt, they get along great. They talk about stuff, and it seems like it's working out. But
Nice.
I don't know. I feel like you value your relationship a little bit more too, because it's not as bad.
Could be worse.
Yeah.
Well, if you're the family lawyer part of the couple, you know that divorce and all that stinks and it's expensive and painful, et cetera. And if you're the non-family lawyer, you're just afraid, okay, I'm going to get hosed in this deal if I ever do anything.
There.
So it's like mutual attrition,
Yeah.
kind of like,
It's Russia in the U.S. in the 80s.
yeah.
So one thing I always heard about divorce when I was ignorant to it was it's like a race to file first. Why is that still a thing? Was it a thing, and why?
So I've had differing opinions on it over the years. I used to feel like it didn't matter who filed first because primacy and recency. The court's going to remember the last thing they heard just like they're going to remember the first. So if I'm the last person to talk, I'm the last person with the witness, eventually they'll rest on me. And so hopefully my story is out there by that point. But I do think it is kind of good to file first now, especially if you are in a jury situation, especially if you have some really egregious facts that you want to get out there. Because when if we file with an affidavit and we're second, we're not going to get a TRO. We're not going to get that extraordinary relief that we might have wanted to. So I kind of do think it's best to file first.
You said TRO, so for the listeners that are not lawyers, that's temporary restraining order. Yes. How common is that going in?
So a TRO in Harris County is very, very standard. What isn't super standard is if we're asking for some kind of extraordinary relief. So, I need somebody to not come back to this house tonight because of abuse.
They just call them temporary orders.
So temporary order is after your TRO.
Oh. I should get divorced again. Get brushed up on these terms.
Let's do it.
Bill, the state won't recognize our civil union.
I think they, do they have?
I thought they're constitutionally prohibited.
No, we're not getting married until everybody can get married.
Wait, I thought we could get married, but then, I thought the Supreme Court said that was a constitutional right.
Yeah.
Man, I have to evaluate everything.
Yeah, hold on. We don't have to go further than that.
Actually, we have an expert here as the two idiots.
Some of the laws on the book still say husband and wife, but the courts have been directed and the clerks of court to not only do the marriage in a man and wife.
There's actually, the Supreme Court has accepted petition on a JP judge that refused to issue licenses, and so she got censored or whatever by the Judicial Commission, and that will be decided probably in the next couple months.
Yeah.
Question, this is a lawyer kind of inside baseball deal. The pleadings, the family law pleadings are extremely to the point.
Yes.
Like there's no, if there was some big drama, like good civil lawyers will put in all the facts of their claim and make it real saucy. Whereas no matter what, pictures, et cetera, divorce filings are like, my name is Joe. My social is last three numbers are X.
Yep.
We want a divorce because we don't get along. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Why is that? And why has no one ever taken it to the next level? Like, we want to get saucy.
So we have not prohibitions in the family code, but you're subject to special exceptions if you have those factual assertions in your family law pleading. We are just straight notice requirement. We don't have to have the factual notice that other civil litigators have to have in their showing. And I don't know why. If I'm able to put an affidavit on because I have facts that will support some kind of extraordinary relief, I'm going to put that affidavit out there. But it's really just not proper with what we do. And I'm not exactly sure why, because there would be so much sauciness in all of those pleadings that the judge would never know.
Once the floodgates open, it'll go.
Let me ask another procedural question. Bill and I love to make money, and we want to start taking family law cases on a contingency basis. Is that going to be okay?
No.
Not if you want to be a lawyer.
Yeah, not if you want to keep your license.
Okay. Why is that? Like, it just encourages litigation, discourages reconciliation?
Yeah, and it's me taking interest in their case. If I'm going to get more money if they litigate it, that's not great for them.
So that brings up a point. So the stuff people like to talk about is the cheating and all the bad acts. But what component of your life is spent on like highly sophisticated business type stuff as far as accounting and getting assets and valuing them and the retirement funds and all that? Like what part of that your practice is there?
Probably 75% is actually dealing with the estates. Complex estates, we have to regularly get businesses valued, have forensic accountants in there working with us hand in hand to see where's money moving. With a lot of the family law cases, especially with closely held businesses, really diving into those businesses and seeing, have you been operating it correctly or have you not? What is this really worth? So it's a large portion of my practice.
On a specific question, so and on the plaintiff side, we do, I only have like 2 hourly cases. So if I have all of my contingency work on and my docket, I haven't earned that yet. So how do you value that? Or do you? If I'm not entitled to that fee yet, does that go towards the value of my estate?
That's the exact. So we live in a very small circle of people, friends.
Kyle doesn't have.
And I get this question like twice a year. Kyle, I'm getting divorced. She found the Snapchat, or I found the Snapchat. It's my understanding under state bar rules, a non-lawyer can't own a piece of my PI practice. Is this lady that I've been married to for 15 years going to get a small fortune or a large fortune?
Or any of the fortune if you haven't earned it yet.
Yes. That's okay. You're an important person.
So it's just going to be dependent on, the structure of your firm. Do we have multiple attorneys? Is this your goodwill? Is it just you and your practice? Because if you're largely de-practice and you walk away and there's no unearned money, then that's one case. But if it's you are just any attorney that's in your practice and we have this huge conglomerate where there's lots of lawyers, that's different. But I don't think it's your money or part of the division until the money is earned and actually paid out to you, whether it's through.
All right. So
That's the answer I wanted to hear.
If
keep it on the books.
It's part of your firm's funds at that point.
So what you're telling all the plaintiffs lawyers listening is that the IOLTA is your safe haven. Should you have any marital indiscretions?
The marital estate.
I am not saying that.
I think that's what she said. She said that.
And don't send emails to your opposing counsel saying, we're going to settle this, but let's just wait like about a year until we can get that done.
And change CPAs every 18 months.
If you do that, though, you want to send that message on Snapchat.
Yeah. I Snapchat all my guy friends. Just kidding. I don't.
Here's a kind of related issue for non-contingency fee lawyers. I've heard this a lot. People would have a very successful business that was primarily maybe 100% owned by a person, and then they're like, okay, we're going to get a divorce, and then ultimately the only outcome of that has to be selling the business. Is that something you see fairly routinely?
I do, and it really just depends on the size of the estate. But if we don't have another source to be able to buy out that party for their equity, then it can be sold and have a receiver appointed and go through that process. But I think most of the time when we recognize that that's going to happen, you've advised a client that they're going to sell it for a lot lower than if we had it sold by your husband at an appropriate time in the future, or we're going to come up with a buyout. Somebody is going to either have
Cough up some cash, take a loan.
And can we structure this? Do we have something we can secure your payments against? That's the biggest thing, is if we don't have anything to use as security, then it's probably going to be sold. But if I can secure your $1 million from this business against different properties that are non-exempt assets, we'll probably be okay. Nobody wants to actually sell the business.
So lots of times when we have guests on, and we can continue with like substantive law questions, it's fine with me, but lots of times we ask people, tell us a case that you're really proud of, or stuff that made your career.
Craziest thing you ever seen.
Craziest thing you ever saw. And I know that you see a lot of crazy stuff, and you probably have to speak in generalities.
Yeah.
I'll preface this by saying, years ago, I worked on the commercial side of Michael Brown, the hand clinic guys, dissolution of his businesses, which were intertwined in the most bananas family law case I had ever seen. So I'm a little bit familiar with some of this crazy.
I think you circulated some reading materials on that one a while back. Very fun.
Maybe.
Great read.
May have happened.
We'll post a link in the bio.
We will not post a link in the bio. So what do you got? Anything totally awesome that you're pretty proud of, or anything so crazy you've got to get it off your chest?
I mean, I have one that's active right now that
Yeah, don't tell us about that one.
Yeah, give us something past.
No, but something in the past. Definitely alternative ways, deviant sexual behavior, I guess, is a big thing.
Look at Kyle. Kyle just got excited.
We're not here to bill shame.
Yeah.
We're not here to build shame.
We don't kink shame on this show unless kink shaming is your kink.
Well,
That's Pete's rule.
and stuff that comes out when you're meeting with somebody and you never would suspect that what they're doing in their bedroom and tell you.
Give us some details. It's like the person's like the superintendent of like a major school district or something.
No. We can't go that far.
But we can say kind of like generally the areas of
Maybe
unique preferences.
Yeah, maybe using a weapon during sexual behavior.
We're talking about the Renaissance.
That's that's the Renaissance. There's a whole festival on that.
A weapon?
Like a mace?
What kind of weapon? A bladed weapon or a gun or what?
Samurai
Guns during sex in places that
guns.
need to have been.
I was over here like David and Goliath with a slingshot.
Josh is just wondering how he's going to do the clip of that one.
I was thinking
deviant sexual behavior on that. Not even deviant, whatever suits your needs.
Wait, real quick question on that deviant behavior. Is that what caused the divorce?
No,
it wasn't. Hop it down. You learn something new every day.
it wasn't. Everybody was on board with it. Totally consensual.
What I would love is this where someone walks in and they're like, no, I'm straight up, never done anything, very, very straight up. And then you, through the discovery process, you're like, Mr. Jones, can we go through some of the stuff we saw and how that conversation goes?
What's behind the hidden bookshelf wall?
What is in your dirty closet, or what is in your skeletons, is what I asked point blank, because I've had that penis picture walking across the room. Our opposing counsel's like, hey, on a temporary basis, you have not gone through discovery. You don't have all of the war chest that you would have going into trial. So it's just like, whose penis is that?
I have to say,
Brother-in-laws that went to your wife. And like,
in our practice, we rarely get penis pictures, and
In a professional sense.
So you're saying, so just to kind of reset it, so the temporary order phase, that's where kind of the judge says, these are going to be the rules that we're going to operate with between now and the end of the divorce whenever it's tried.
exactly.
And so that's typically done within 4 to 6 weeks of when a case is filed.
Yes.
And there's not discovery at all.
Usually no. And so we had new family court rules that I think were actually undone September 1st, where I couldn't even initiate formal discovery until your initial disclosures were done, which was 30 days after the answer deadline. So you could appear at a temporary orders hearing as an attorney, never have appeared in the case, never triggered that deadline. I therefore can't issue my discovery that I need to prepare. And I can't really use subpoenas a lot of the time to circumvent the rules. I mean, sometimes it happens, but with that new time frame that they put into place a couple of years back for family lawyers, you're walking in like,
To be fair, we apologize for that rule. That was actually a rule that plaintiffs' lawyers caused, and we still have it. It's probably for good reason. But yeah, we're sorry about that.
So so someone comes in and you go, okay, here's how this is going to play out. In 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to have this hearing, this temporary orders hearing. And if there is any dirt that they have on you that they've obtained in any way before this, you're about to get confronted with it in open court, meaning to the public, and you're going to have to deal with that. So you better tell me now so I can deal with it ahead of it, rather than finding out as I'm watching my or my opposing counsel walking across with some pictures that have some things on me.
I feel like pictures of and sexual nature of men if they're not that bad anymore, because Jeff Bezos, I mean, look what he built, and he sent, he definitely sent some of those. So,
do you prefer to represent men or women?
Good question.
Hey, I'm here for
But the way she reacted, it's not
sweet.
men.
it's hard. I think that I represented a lot of really, really good dads. And so I feel like dads, while you can't consider sex in the courtroom by the judge, I feel like dads still sometimes get the short end of the stick. And
Still?
So, yeah, I don't know if it's just an inherent bias of judges that they can't set aside. I know the family code says we're not going to consider this, but
bunch of man-haters.
yeah. And so I really like representing good clients. How about that?
And you just find that when it comes to clients, men are generally better than women.
How do you handle it?
Except that men are a little bit less emotional at times. How about that?
How do you deal with something where you get hired, you get into a case, and then you realize you're on the wrong side of this, and your client is actually not the good parent here?
Well, you have those conversations with your client about how do I improve this situation? And that goes back to what I said at the beginning, trying to leave these people better than where they started. And sometimes it's having that conversation with a client saying, these are the things that I see that the court is going to pick up on. Like, why are you acting this way? Why are you doing this? Let's figure out, can we structure a schedule different? Can I get you some tools that will help you be a better parent? Because at the end of the day, when I'm gone, you still have to deal with that person. And if y'all can't fix your issues, then you're going to have to pay me again to come back and redo this. So trying to really get them to self-reflect. And I think that's probably where my strength is as a lawyer.
The other question that I had, which is all of the questions I know about family law, is I know that there are times when when divorce gets filed, one of the individuals has to pay for both sets of attorneys. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Normally, it's interim fees. So at that 4 to 6 week hearing, when we do that temporary orders hearing, that's where you ask for interim fees. And so we're looking at who has access to money. Really, if we have money in a bank account, it's generally both of y'all's money. It's community property. So it's really the community paying for both lawyers versus husband or wife paying for the other spouse's attorney. That's hard to explain sometimes to a client who's going to be shelling out the money, but there's a benefit to having both people represented by competent counsel as well.
Okay.
What's the largest estate you've ever had to handle?
I think we had a big one. Probably me personally, probably 15 or 16 million.
Go say some names. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But I know that our firm has handled ones that are larger than that. It just depends on the estate. And I've got.
Is that a different ball game? Like when you're looking at an estate that big, like do your prices fluctuate or does it charge different? Or they're looking at minimum 50 grand?
I mean, they're going to pay their retainer, their normal retainer. And there's no normal retainer. I feel like if they're probably going to end up paying experts a little bit more.
Right, to dig through.
For us, because I only have such a skill set, right? Like my skill set is in the courtroom, in your mediation, looking at your finances, figuring out who do we need. But I need a forensic accountant to testify a lot of the time. We need somebody to talk about characterization. Is this yours or ours?
Do you have a forensic accountant that you like?
Yeah, we use BDO a lot. Aaron Levy over there. Cynthia Wynn is a forensic accountant at Anderson that we use a lot. I've used her a few times recently. She doesn't actually value the businesses, but
I have a great story about BDO, but I don't know that I'm allowed to say it online. I know I didn't sign a confidentiality agreement about this. Maybe I'll save it for offline, and then if you guys think it's great,
I'm going to support that decision to do it offline.
Yeah, well, that makes one of us.
Yeah.
What's the most number of marriages and divorces you've seen in one person?
4, and I've seen them remarry each other 3 of the time.
Oh, same two people, 4 times. That's love.
Yeah.
I mean, the triumph of wishful thinking over common sense.
That's insanity at its finest.
I mean,
That's hot, actually.
loved her so much I married her twice.
Sounds like a
Times.
Three times.
Sounds like a Disney movie.
But yeah, no.
Psychiatric issues involved.
So do they have y'all like on a permanent retainer at that point?
They have a small office. They have a small office in the back.
Home office.
All right, let me switch gears. You kind of referenced this. So when I was in practice, I know you guys have this now. You be representing people that are hurt or lost loved ones. You become a ear to, it's not law. It's I'm suffering. I'm sad. This is frustrating. They're not respecting me. All that, and I often thought we really need some training on how to counsel
100%.
better than we get in law school. But you hear that, you're talking about, this is my child, this is my husband, this is my spouse. You probably hear this a lot more than we do. So how do you deal with that when you walk the line between being a good listener and as the lawyer, counselor function, but making sure the real counselors that are professionally trained get involved?
Yeah, it's just from my very initial potential new client meeting, I'm talking about the importance of having that person. One, your bill is going to go way up, but you have to hear everybody out. My clients, their feelings are valid. Their feelings are how they got into this situation, and their feelings are probably going to either get them into a situation again if they don't get it in check, or if they do control their emotions or figure out how to deal with that, they're never going to have to see me again. And so making sure that they understand that mental health treatment is not going to be viewed negatively, that having that counselor to confide in is going to help them be a better parent. You listen and you assess. And if there's some stuff that's apparent, if your client schizophrenia, something along those lines, making sure that they understand they need to seek help, or declining representation if it's to a point where you're not able to.
Will the courts order that at the temporary order stage sometimes? Counseling? That one of the people have counseling or both?
The ability to do so under the code. I do not see it being ordered regularly at all. I see judges ordering mental health assessments. If we need a psych eval, we'll get that. There is generally an expense to that. We're ordering what's called a custody evaluation, and that has therapists that speak to the family, see how the parents interact together, and then they report back to the court. So on that basic level, if we need a recommendation, it happens. But to say you're going to go fix yourself, not common.
Okay. Something maybe could be improved.
I think so, to an extent. But if you're willing, most of the time clients they seek out the treatment on their own.
Switching gears off that, outside of your firm, are there one or a few lawyers that you have like a lot of respect for in the family law sector?
Yeah.
Like who's like the Mount Rushmore? Because people always say like, I got a buddy, he needs the best of the best of the best, bulldog.
Aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive, yeah.
He's got an office down on the port. He does family law and business formations, a little bit of PI work.
Sprinkles some
Fantastic.
immigration in.
Other family lawyers, I think Kelly Fritsch is a phenomenal family lawyer.
Fritsch or French? Fritsch.
She has her own firm, and I've watched her in court and how she conducts herself. She does a lot of amicus work, so representing the children. I don't do a lot of that, but watching how she deals with clients, even if it's my client on a case, she's very eloquent. She's smart in court. I really think that she is super impressive.
Nice.
And you reference that amicus will be appointed by the judge to do what, and what would be the circumstances why that would be needed?
So if we have either a high conflict case or a case where custody is at issue, some of the family courts, and I say some because you can't get an amicus in some courts in Harris County, they'll appoint a individual that will represent the best interest of the child. It's not to figure out what the child wants per se, but it's to really dive in and be an extension of the court and talk to the teachers, talk to the family members, talk to the kids, see really what their life looks like. And then they don't make a recommendation to the court, but they sit next to you at counsel table and they ask the questions, and the judge generally can figure out
What's going on?
Yeah, where they're headed.
And who pays for them?
So depending on what the estate looks like, it can be one spouse or it can be one party. It can be them splitting it. Under our code, though, the amicus has to be paid. So it's a factor that the court has to consider when determining, are we going to put somebody on the case? If financial means aren't there, you're not going to generally get an amicus.
Because there's not like some state or county fund that pays for that.
No. And so maybe you'll do a custody evaluation through like the domestic relations office, which is that therapist kind of talking to both sides. That is on a sliding scale. So it's a lot more cost effective for people. And you actually get a better result because you get a recommendation that can be used in court versus an amicus that may or may not question and get their point across to the court.
What's the hardest part about your job?
I think managing expectations probably is the hardest. Everybody comes in thinking that they're entitled to 100% of the estate or that they were the most wronged. And a lot of people are really, really wrong, but our court system really isn't the area for justice in our family courts necessarily.
I know. I'm glad you qualified that because over on our side, it's justice everywhere.
They're bound by their code and what is best for a child. And it's so subjective that you don't know what's going to happen in a courthouse in family law.
Oh,
They have a lot of discretion.
I went one time and I didn't even go into a courtroom. I got scared. I was a 1L and I went in because one of our professors said, yeah, go check out the family law court. And so I walked in, saw a woman getting chased by the bailiffs with a child in her arms, who I assume she had just taken. Not stolen. It's probably her kid. I just don't think she was supposed to take that child at the time. And then I saw baby daddy and husband in a fist fight one floor up. And I was like, I don't think this is for me.
I think it's perfect for you.
I think I would thrive in that atmosphere of chaos, but I'm afraid. So
Yeah.
I think it would just make me sad.
Well, okay.
yeah, I'm okay.
These are some of these questions that I'm just thinking. All right, have you ever had a couple come to you and go, "Hey, we've got it all figured out, lined out," and then how do you walk the line on? Okay, I only represent this person. I don't represent you, because inevitably, half the time that blows up in its face and it becomes a full fight.
If people come to me and say they have agreement, I'm always a little bit skeptical, but I always hope for it for them. But I will not meet with a couple. I want one party to come in. You are my client. One person signs a contract. No joint representation. Sometimes some firms really teeter that line, and I don't think it's appropriate, and so I don't do it. But I will work with another spouse in the case after they've appeared in the case, filed their answer, done a waiver, and not worked with in the sense of you come to my office and sit down and we talk, but help make get a proposal together, get them a proposal, get them into mediation, do what we need to do, but make it very, very clear that I only represent.
And when you say waiver, they're in writing stating, I understand that Caitlin does not represent me and she's actually adverse to me.
Yeah, and in the waiver of service, letting them know that this is petitioner's counsel and you have to notify petitioner's counsel of your change of address, your name, everything, so that they know that they aren't the petitioner, they're the respondent. I'm on the other side. I provide them with a copy of the contract. Sometimes if my client will authorize it, but making it overly clear to that person that I don't represent you.
If Bill wants to start hiding assets, yachts,
Art, crypto
accounts,
crypto and art,
stones in Amsterdam,
diamonds.
Any ideas? He's going to need your help.
I am not giving y'all ideas on how to commit fraud.
It's not fraud.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And married.
We're just protecting ourselves with fraud if we ever need it.
He needs fraud protection.
It's really, really hard to be able to hide anything.
Well, yeah, with that attitude, it is.
That's a good.
I'm not telling y'all.
That's a good question because it's another area that we haven't discussed. Prenuptial agreements. Do you do those? How does that go? Because that's always probably I don't have one. Never got married at very young.
You don't actually,
and I don't need one. Yeah, I was going to say I don't need one. Actually, my wife needs one. But how does that go? And is that awkward? I assume it is.
It's super awkward. My husband said he would sign a premarital agreement, and I didn't make him. And my dad, who's the lawyer, is like, "Why didn't you do this?" I'm like, "You're not a family lawyer." So
yeah, but you are. And you would give your clients opposite advice?
It depends on the size of the estate. If you come in and you're a young couple that has no business entities, you don't have some kind of huge income stream that we want to protect, you're just a normal couple, our law protects your separate property. Anything you had on the date of marriage is going to be your separate property, and I can tell you how to protect that in the sense of we're not going to commingle assets. The day you get married, you are going to open up a brand new account. That money is going to stay in your other account, and we're only going to use your separate property for specific things. We can protect it that way without the premarital agreement.
Kyle, write that down.
But if you don't want to have a estate be created, then we need to talk.
But I'd have to say that's probably easier said than done, right? I mean, you think that at the beginning, and then things happen, and pay credit card out of this deal, and
pretty soon somebody's borrowing your golf clubs.
Yeah, there's secret folders on servers at law firms. Things.
And that's why
they're using the yacht on weekends that aren't their weekends.
Yeah,
that's the forensic
the big
accounting comes up.
Yeah, and even with a premarital agreement, a lot of times you're still going to have a forensic accountant because we signed the premarital agreement today, but don't get divorced for 20 years. The existence of those assets may be protected, but where are those assets now? Are they in existence? Did we deplete them? So I I do think it's oftentimes unnecessary because of the legwork we're going to have to do to still sort the mess out. If you can just keep clean records and come consult and we can talk about whether you're capable of doing that, then you may not need one.
What about post-nuptial agreements?
So we do partition and exchange agreements. Not as...
That's new, right? They invented that since I got out of law school.
I don't know. I mean, we had so I just went with the opposite.
Yeah. If we want to change the character of an asset, we have full right to contract and do that. It just is a weird situation because, again, if you come to me and say, my husband wants to change this business from community to separate, I'm going to say, oh, hell no. Unless...
The Cadillac belongs to Peter.
So let me just hypothetically say I own my law firm.
Okay.
And I get married, so it's separate. But then after I'm married, another firm wants to merge with me, and then it becomes its own entity. So would that be something that you'd post out, or would that be covered still?
We should probably do a post up on that.
Well, there's no this is hypothetical.
Yeah. No.
I'm not even married.
You should probably do that.
How do you own your own law?
Well, no, that brings up a point, because aren't there times where the new partners will say, look, you guys may be completely happily married, but I don't want to get dragged into it if you become unhappy.
Well, you got to start.
I strongly recommend, if you are partners with other lawyers, you need to do a partnership agreement that addresses that issue 100%.
Where the spouse signs it.
And make all the spouses sign it. I do not own a piece of this law firm. When it comes time for a just and right division, I will not be considering these assets, or I will be considering these assets, and they'll be
We're going to value the
how we're going to value the asset. Like, you should make sure the spouses are bought in. Believe me.
Yeah.
So you I'm sure you've been brought in to consult on that.
and you want to make sure all of those things. Also, you can have a spouse that say, I don't have any interest in this, but by nature of our property law, yes, you do.
Yeah, you do.
It's just, what is your recourse? Is your recourse being able to force sale under the partnership agreement? Probably not if it's done right. But we still need to value that entity and put it on our spreadsheet and figure out how to make you whole, because it's community property. If it was acquired after marriage and wasn't a mutation. So what you were saying, Bill, was like, I had this entity before, we merged after. That could be a mutation situation. So figuring out how did we capitalize the new company, all of that stuff. But we definitely...
The more you talk, I can just think of hilariously random questions asked, but yeah, that's all I got right now. That are worth saying out loud. I don't want to look more dumb.
Okay, so here's the big question, and you hear this a lot, is that family lawyers kind of sow conflict until the money runs out, and then they tell the clients to settle. You hear that a lot. So what is your... I can tell you do not engage in that kind of thing.
But do family lawyers in our community? Yeah.
They throw a name out there. Let's dock this thing. I mean, that's what we started this.
So what would you tell someone if you were just like, look, I don't want your business, but when you hear people come to you, go, hey, this is going on, and you'll say, I see that happening, but there's really nothing you can do.
No, there's not. At the end of the day, the attorneys are generally going to get paid. And that's just part of, I think, all of what we do. The lawyers are going to get paid at the end of the day. It's just, do you have a lawyer that's going to exploit that and run up that bill? And if you can show to the court that this is happening, maybe the court takes that into consideration in the division. You know, if you've outspent me $300,000 to $100,000, and I'm looking at your billing and I'm like, what the hell happened? A court could consider that. But most of the time, it's just part of the practice that happens.
So go ahead.
So you spend most of your time helping people break up or live with each other in a way.
They've already broken up.
Get their lives back.
So Bill wanted me to ask this question.
That's not true.
Do you keep a list of wealthy, recently divorced ladies and play a little bit of matchmaker from time to time?
What are you looking at me for?
So I have had clients, or they've asked me if you see anybody, and I've always wanted to say, let's throw like a divorce soiree at the end of the night.
It sounds like a kick-ass Christmas party.
It does. The annual divorcee ball.
You have to rank them before you'd have 5 levels of the soirees, like the 9s and all the way down to 2s.
Do them different nights.
But based not on looks, based on
It's a combo.
the payment that they just received and how many kids they have.
Do a combo. I mean, it's a weighted average.
Different, whatever Bill wants. I mean, I suppose
It's all an algorithm. You know, it's all an algorithm.
Okay, so my question is a flip side. We always ask, like, what makes a good lawyer? And Kyle may have some questions, some rapid fire questions. But what would you say makes a good client? If you were advising someone, you're not hiring Kaylin, you're going to hire someone else, but here's what you need to do as a client to make this go as well as it can go. What would you advise someone?
If we have kids involved, is put their interests first. Don't use them as a pawn. They're just a part of this process. But I always say, provide the other spouse with information that you would want. If you want to know when your kid goes to the doctor, tell the other spouse. If you want to know that the teacher called because we're in ISS, tell the other spouse.
What's ISS?
In-school suspension.
Okay.
You know, if we have a kid in trouble, be vocal about the things that are happening in your kids' lives, because you're going to get treated that same way back by this other spouse. And if I can show my clients and my clients can do those things, then we're going to walk into court knowing that you've behaved appropriately. And don't text everything. Like some of the stuff I see in text, like I get that you get winded, but control your emotions. Take a beat. Think about it before you type it, because it's going to be on that screen.
And it was like, I still love you.
No, mine's funny. It's like, Prolly, Prolly.
Did the kids get vaccinations this year?
Yeah.
So the big question is it best to respond to a text with K or OK?
Don't say K.
Or got it? Or is it better to do a long-winded, just hammer them back?
Yeah.
I think just any of the first K, okay.
Or just
got it.
Call me. Yeah.
How about an audio recording? I'm just kidding.
Audios come in. Assume you're being recorded. I tell my clients that too. When you come in, just always assume that is happening.
Because what's the legality of that? I can't remember.
No, it's fine. It's a one-party state. So as long as you are a part of the conversation, you can record it.
If you've been on the phone with Bill in the last 4 years, it's recorded.
Okay.
So the other advice I assume from the rest of our conversation is be very honest with your lawyer. Like, throw everything out there so they can deal with it.
Yes, please. Because I can't handle something if I don't know what's coming. I can prepare for it. We can prep you for it. We can come up with a plan about why this happened and how we're not, doing those steps anymore. But if you don't,
I was polishing my gun very gently when it slipped, and who knows where it might end up.
That's advocacy.
I don't think that's. I don't. Okay.
How does custody question? How does that work? There's in the statute, there's some rules on that as I understand it, but there's also some different. Harris County does week on week, or how does custody work?
Yeah, so I think you're asking how does possession and access.
Is that
So,
we as I led off? There's a lot of terms that we've used that are like circa 1980, and you've kind of so
possession and access is how do we dictate which party is going to have the kids when.
Okay.
So we have what's called a standard possession order, and that is your cookie cutter way of dealing with a child custody case. If you go to court, probably 8 times out of 10, they're going to do a standard possession order.
which is
So that's your first, third, and fifth weekends, Friday at 6 to Sunday at 6, and Thursday night for dinner. But there's an expansion of that, which is really what is standard now within the last year. And so Thursday overnights during the school year, Friday to Monday morning on your weekends, 30 days in the summer and holidays rotate. That's your standard. But there has been big moves to try to get a 50-50.
week on, week off.
We call it 2-2-5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, rotate the weekends.
That's what I have.
Yeah. And I like the 2-2-5. It's less changes for the child. I think week off really works for a lot of people that have older kids. I did one recently that was Wednesday to Sunday and Sunday to Wednesday. So they're really not doing all of that back and forth. And that's the good thing about mediation is we can figure out what actually works for you. Yeah, because the SPO doesn't work for everybody.
How often are you copied on an email between divorcing spouses with, hey, you were supposed to drop off Billy at 5 and you didn't come till 5:30, and the lawyers are copied?
Yeah, a lot. And that's also one of those, what makes a great client, somebody who can understand what's an emergency versus not. But I get that you'd be scared if your kid's not home when they're supposed to be, but regularly copied.
I had a commercial client who I think had been married and divorced several times. And he was kind of like, you meet the guy and you're going to be like, you're going to be divorced 6 times. Like, never really had a real job, worked for his parents' company, had no responsibility. And like every time he got into a fight with the girlfriend or the wife or the ex-wife's boyfriend's girlfriend, it was just like constantly I'm like, hey man, number 1, I don't know any of these people. 2, I don't have any idea what you guys are fighting about. And 3, I'm not a family lawyer, but thanks for copying me out of all this nonsense. It's great.
Talk to you Monday.
Did you bill him for that?
Yeah, Kyle, are you kidding me? Look at it. Look at that sport coat. Of course he billed.
This was actually a case, no joke, of like no good deed going unpunished.
Sure.
Where I represented him on a bunch of commercial issues that I had taken on a small contingency. And he ended up hosing me out of money just because he's like I said, like you meet the guy and you're like, total prick. And then you deal with him for a couple of years and you're like, oh, of course he hosed me out of money and told opposing counsel to pay money directly to him because it was okay with his lawyer. Like I saw that coming from a mile away. I should have known better. So he treated me as kindly as he treated all of the ex-wives and ex-girlfriends.
Oh, well.
Oh,
So,
live you learn.
yeah, board certification.
Yeah.
When did you get that?
So in January is when I got my letter saying I was approved. But I sat for the test last October. So did the exam, waited, and
And you've been out 9 years? So that's got to be pretty quick in your world.
yeah.
What did you have to do? Like, were there a certain amount of trials or a certain amount of cases.
Yeah, so you've got to do so many mediations. You've got to do so many contested hearings up to the temporary orders point. You've got to have either jury, appeal, combination of both, which I've had both of those, and pretty much so many final trials to a verdict within custody cases versus divorce, which is really hard as a family law practitioner. A lot of time we go and we try the case and then we start and somebody is like, I don't like this, and we cut a deal based after the first day. And so those aren't to verdict and they don't count. But I try a lot of cases and I'm in court a lot, so we were able to get it done.
And you guys in family law, y'all are back in full-on in-person court and have been for a while?
Depending on the court. So there's certain ones that have been back for a while. If we're up in Montgomery County, you are back in person, and you never were not in person up there. But Harris County is kind of a hybrid, Fort Bend, certain judges. Just depends on the matter.
Montgomery County?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was never COVID there.
No, there was no.
I mean, it's amazing the level of immunity for the judges and court staff, because there never a single reported case of COVID.
It's not that crazy if you just need to pray a little more.
So Harris County, of the counties you practice in, that's the only one that has dedicated family law courts, or some of the other ones have them too?
No, so Montgomery, Galveston does not. They hear everything. They have a dedicated family law associate judge. Fort Bend has dedicated family law. So, I mean, I feel like most of them do.
Are you mostly in front of associate judges?
No, not really. It just depends on the day, and are we going to object to an associate judge or not? Because certain things, a temporary orders hearing, for example, can go in front of an associate judge, but I can file an appeal to the presiding judge. So we weigh, do we really want to go do this twice potentially, or are we willing to waive to the AJ? And probably half and half, honestly.
How many lawyers y'all have at your firm?
12, 13 of us.
Does that include Matt? Is he still licensed?
Yes.
So as family law firms go, that puts you all probably in the top as far as number of lawyers. Is that right?
I think so. We're on the larger end for just family law. All day, every day. That's all we do. So, but I was Matt's first associate attorney. And so just to have seen all of this growth and see these younger attorneys come in, it's just really exciting.
And the website?
skillernfirm.com.
Okay.
All right.
We've got 10 questions. If you can sit still for a minute. There's no passes. Once you submit to the questions, you got to answer them.
Bill and I have not approved these, and we
vetted.
We kind of approach it the same way as you do associate judges. We may object, we may not, but we reserve our right to.
10 questions from the Dirty Verdict here with Caitlin. Ready?
Okay.
What is your favorite word, profane or otherwise?
Fuck.
That's a good one.
Fuck yeah.
We don't hear that enough. Least favorite word, profane or otherwise?
I don't have any non-favorite cuss words. Moist. I don't like the word.
Yeah.
That's a repeat of, repeat.
That's damp. We get damp a lot too.
Favorite sound?
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Least favorite sound?
Like that crackling that people do. Have you ever heard that?
All right.
Hanging on. That's Obama made a pretty good living doing that.
What?
That's what we do.
What job, other than the law, would you like to try?
I'd like to be a teacher. Teach.
Nice.
What job, other than the law, would you not like to attempt?
Being a chef.
There you go.
That seems stressful.
Yeah.
If you were going to be reincarnated as a plant or animal, what would you choose? Bearing in mind, no one has yet chosen a plant, so you get bonus points if you pick a plant.
Kyle's a bot now.
I still wouldn't do it.
I don't want to be a plant. I want to be my dog. Only my dog, though.
You're a dog?
Yeah.
Okay. What breed?
She's a mutt.
Okay. What trait or characteristic do you admire most in opposing counsel?
Integrity and honesty.
What trait do you admire most in a judge?
Knowing the law. So not knowledge. Being knowledgeable.
What trait or characteristic do you hope others see in your work?
I don't know that I'm badass.
I think what she's trying to say is preparation.
Preparation, yeah.
I think badass is a completely adequate answer.
We took it.
Thanks for joining us this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit our website at www.dirtyverdict.com. If you are interested in coming on as a guest, or have a story idea, please email us at story@dirtyverdict.com.